Well, this one's a turn up for the books. You know what? The gap between Chapter 2 and Chapter 3 hasn't actually felt that long to me. Yes, that's right. Today they announced Chapter 3 Champions. There's a press page for it. There's a new trailer. I'll run through all of this good stuff with you guys. A bit of a hint as to what's coming out with the patch. It will be next Tuesday. And for once, I have to say, it seems people are less aggy about the release. Like, people at this point know what the Dragon Response Mission releases are going to be like. They know that it's not going to change. They know that we've got 4 of them to go through. And unlike with Chapter 1 and 2, for this chapter, the immediate response from the community isn't just pure boredom and outright hate. People are actually discussing what might happen seriously, which is nice. And I suppose it helps that it's a fairly decent trailer too. For one thing, well, they're going hard on the TENGU stuff again. So do you remember how last time they kind of had that moment where we saw a TENGU at the very end of the trailer? Well, they go even further on this one. It also looks like it's going to be a patch with a major focus on Bram. I mean, hell, just look at the carousel they picked for this one, that animated Bram image there. And probably the coolest thing to me, once again, it looks like an Elder Dragon will be appearing in a Living World patch. And I think that they did all the Kralkatorrik stuff really well. I even think in Flashpoint Season 3, where we last saw Primordus, they did pretty well, and hold that thought. So let's start off looking over at the press page to see what they have to say. Beginning on the 9th of March, this is 7 days away. Jormag is as deadly and corrupted as their twin Primordus. There is no peace in this balance, only a terrible push and pull of opposing elemental magics, each laying claim to the unstable territory between them. Something must give, and you can only hope it's something you can bear to lose. I'm really beginning to feel like we're going to have a major character death this saga, and I feel like it's going to be Bram. Not just because of all the hinting that they've been doing in these trailers and the suggestion that he'll fall to Primordus, which has been pretty plainly and transparently breadcrumbed out by the story so far, but also just because I feel like in terms of his arc, we did the bit where he was an asshole, and now we've done the bit where we like him again, and now it kind of feels like an okay place to lose him. I guess we'll see. Here's what they say. Dragon Response Missions: Caledon Forest, the Bloodtide Coast, and Fireheart Rise. Now, if you've been following my channel, you'll know I did a speculation video about where upcoming decent places might be. I did actually say Fireheart Rise. Well, that video was kind of pointless because this stuff was data mined. And people have kind of known that there'd only be 3 more. If you remember last patch we had 4. This time we have 3, and you might say, well, this is going to be a shorter patch, but actually not, because it looks like it's going to be 3 plus a special mission in the scrying pool. It looks like we're going to get a new Vision of the Past, guys, because check this out. Scry into the past, play as Bram Aerson in a solo story mission, and use his powers and skills on a journey to seek the meaning of the Owl Spirit's prophecy. So hopefully you caught my recap on the story from the last release. I'll put a link to it somewhere in the description or the end of the video. This is obviously something that Bram is going to be doing in the present tense right now as a result of those recent moments. So unless he did it between patches, I'm guessing the scrying pool is just going to show us something that's currently happening on TYRIA rather than something that happened off in the deep past as it usually does. But I'm expecting this to be a lot like, not necessarily the tank escort that we got with the full Visions of the Past release, but a little bit more like when we were playing as Bangar and Ryland and witnessing the eventual death of Almora, which was pretty decent. If we're really lucky, that will mean that this Bram mission is in a whole new area of the world to explore. So you may be 1 Dragon Response mission down, but you could get something of a mini dungeon here. And in fact, the trailer might be showing a new area to explore as well. I'll come back to that when we look at the trailer itself. You obviously have the new factions joining us. 4 of them this time. The elusive TENGU may finally be willing to join forces. May be willing. I'm pretty sure that the devs will still hold off on this release. Don't get me wrong, I think there'll be a mobilized faction, but will the story really dive into it? Will we go behind the gates of the Dominion of Winds and so on? I seriously doubt it. Very thin chance it will happen in the finale. I'm still kind of a fan of the idea that the TENGU get decimated by these dragons through the Icebrood saga, and they decide they want to return home to Cantha, and then that's kind of why they're there with us in the X-Pack, and maybe they become playable or something like that. But I don't think all of that will be coming this release. It's actually quite interesting when we get to the trailer, you'll see that Jormag is attacking them, when in the past it's usually been Primordus attacking them, and maybe there's something going on there. As for the other 3 new allied factions, well, there are some hints, maybe. I think the Omakhan might be one. We'll get to that in a moment. Next, you've got, this is also the screenshot they show on the press page here is a Quetzal Tengu instead of the Koromial ones that we'd usually associate with the Dominion of Winds. Next, they say new rewards: bolster your forces through the Dragon Slayer Mastery line, which will unlock a bit further. Get new rewards from faction vendors. Upgrade your weapons to their 3rd and final form. I actually really just want an infusion again. I think the Deljamor infusion has been the best part of the Champions releases and the thing that's got me playing DRMs more than anything else. These weapons are just so crazy expensive and so tricky to get. I'm really hoping that by the time the finale comes out, the rewards are a little bit more accessible. Like, you have to go hardcore with these things, super hardcore every day, to be able to work your way through it. I mean, they do represent a ton of money at the moment, and I think a lot of people don't recognize that. But man, it's a bit daunting, the idea of getting all those collections. So fingers crossed we'll see something by the end of the saga. And then finally, they do of course have a bunch of screenshots, which I've already been showing you guys in the background as I've been talking. But I'll leave you on this last one. Check out this screen here. So, this is Bram. This is obviously going to be his mission, somewhere very fiery. We're in some kind of flame chamber. There's a glimpse of this in the trailer. It looks like a totally new place. Like, my instinct is to say this is where the machine was with Balthazar in Flashpoint. But it's actually a little bit too small and constrained for that to me. I actually think it'd be cool if this was the central transfer chamber, and where Eye of the North ended. This looks like a recreation of the final boss battle against the Great Destroyer in Guild Wars 1. And do you know what might be interesting? A new version of the Great Destroyer battle. So that's my guess. We're going to have a Great Destroyer boss fight as the final moment in Bram's mission, and that this is where the Guild Wars 1 hero put down the Great Destroyer right before we got that Ogden's Benediction cutscene that introduced the Sylvari and Livia with the Scepter of Ore and all that kind of beautiful stuff. Primordus opening his eye for the first time. The one kind of wriggle in this idea is that Primordus has been asleep, so in theory he's still at Draconis Mons, right, where he got put to sleep there, and it's like he drifted off in the magma below the earth and ended up there. They already did kind of a weird repositioning of Jormag this season, so maybe they'd do that with him too. Maybe he's awake in this shot, and yeah, I think Owl is going to lead Brown there or something. That's just my guess from this one trailer, but I'm feeling pretty confident on it. With all that said, let's have a look at the trailer and see what we can pick out in there.
It was horrific. Whole villages of innocent people just frozen mid-step for hundreds of years to come. We can't allow Jormag to take the Dominion of Winds.
Hundreds, thousands of us have already died because of these elder dragons. Something has to change.
So there you have it, a pretty simple trailer in terms of the dialogue in the background, the features they've announced. It doesn't even actually show one of the data mined dragon response missions, and that's the one in Fireheart Rise. Maybe they felt it wasn't too trailerable. If that's a Primordus attack at Fireheart Rise, then maybe they don't change the environment very dramatically, so therefore there's not too much to show on screen or something. Or there's some kind of big spoilery reason why they don't do it out there. So yeah, let's run through. There's obviously a lot of shots of Bloodtide. It's looking frozen. We saw some of the screenshots from the press page already. I think they did a really brilliant job. Also, I love this trailer for the stupidest of reasons, and it's only because I love this feature. This is, I think, and I've done a lot of these trailer analyses over the years, I think this is the first time they've made like a guild decoration a like feature of the trailer. Like they're actually showing the guild decoration, which looks very cool. You can kind of paint whole areas of the terrain snowy. If that's just a giant platform, you might be able to build really convincing floating islands and stuff. And you might say, well done to them for, you know, actually making these other elements of the patch clear to people. Or on the other hand, you might say, wow, these releases are so thin on the ground, they're having to leverage the decoration stuff on the trailers now. But do you know what? Honestly, I really like the idea, so screw you cynics on this one. I probably will grind a few DRMs for this decoration if that's how we actually get it. So as we move through here, you can see a little bit of Caledon Forest. Tricky to make it look snowy and thawed over. And at the start of the trailer, actually, there's still a lot of greenery there. I mean, they've obviously made it colder with the lighting and so on. But it's actually some of the big skin animations, I think, that do the most to make it look frosty. Like, look at this here. This is the bridge to the Dominion of Winds facing the wall. And we've got this giant snow orb here. Hiding inside is one of those giant ice brood constructs that we've been fighting through strike missions and so on. Maybe he needs to be in there to stay cold to continue operating. It's a really interesting contrast seeing this tropical area and all the icy stuff. And that's where DRMs are best, when they really play with the environment that they're in. Anyway, it looks like what he's really trying to do is siege and break down the wall. And we're going to help the Tengu here to defend the wall from this incursion, which you kind of already do get to experience in the open world, particularly in Kessex. There's a lot of signs that the destroyers are sprouting up and attacking that doorway up there. It is an interesting point because obviously the dragon's territories can't overlap. Primordus has wanted this place for ages. Now Jormag does too. Does that mean there's something special in there? A lot of magic or something? Is one of the shards of the Bloodstone hidden within their walls or something? Does this explain why the Wizard's Tower was moved? So many interesting questions, but to be honest with you guys, I think we're not going to get the answers to them. I think we'll defend the place, but we won't be allowed in. Maybe the best thing we'll find is by the end of the patch an envoy goes off inside to report of our good deeds or something. That's really all they show of Kessex for the start here. I do want to note in this earlier shot as well, you can see one of the Lion Guard havens with a capture territory kind of thing. So I'm sure that will be a part of the DRM. It looks like we probably start somewhere along the Lion's Road and we head out towards the Dominion of Winds, ending here at this doorway with one of these guys as the big boss towards the end. I really hope the bosses are a little bit better made than the Chapter 2 ones, especially the one in Lake Doric was rubbish, and I'm kind of concerned because later in the trailer it looks like we get something a bit similar. Anyway, as the trailer moves along, we'll be moving over to Bloodtide. I really like the transformation of Bloodtide in terms of the lighting. It does so much to just be able to add a little bit of snow around the Stormbluff Isle here. See some of these ships actually snowed in with the ice sheets that have crept forwards, and now we're going to be able to walk along what were all these waterways once before. If you look closely, you'll see Rox seems to be an NPC in this one, as well as Kreesha. It'll be fun to see their interactions. I mean, that's one of the best things about DRM so far. You might find a bit of Order of Whispers influence here. I mean, this is right around their entryway. And it's funny because I actually think that some really cool locations for Dragon response missions were the Order places. I think defending the Special Archives at the Dermot Priory, defending indoors at the Vigil Keep, and defending inside the cave at the Chantry of Secrets would all have been great. But maybe that steps on the toes of the personal story a little bit much, where we saw it there. Here we've got some of the ArenaNet Guild Hall decorations. They do actually, on live, have their own hall with their own deco set up. I like how they have to borrow a lot of the other Christmas stuff just to get a bit of a snowy theme going on here. We're obviously a little bit past Winter's Day now, but anybody who still has a snow-themed hall, well, we'll be able to have some fun. I especially like the idea of decorations as rewards on content like this, because there's almost no limit to how many of those floor panels you might like. You know, you could want 100 of them, and then that means loads of DRM playing, or you might just want a handful for your own specific little project. It's kind of like a capless thing. It's not like a lot of the other reward schemes in Guild Wars, which is once you've got it, you ding the collection and you never care again, or once you've got that ascended quality, you never care again. This will just keep on going. So, yeah, and they give you even 2 separate shots in the trailer. It's weird seeing some clearly Heart of Thorns content there. Back to Bloodtide, we get the assault up the hill. That's obviously the lighthouse. It's usually storming here. Now it's snow, so it will feel very different. If you remember, there's that cannon hero challenge where you've got to properly aim. Usually trips me up. This is such a lame lower third to have TYRIA stands together. I mean, come on, that's not a bankable feature of the release. But what they're really getting at here is that's the Omicron you can see. That's one of their sand effigies. One of the best combat tonics in the game, for what it's worth, as well as a bunch more. So that's where I think one of the other recruitable factions will be. Maybe there's a hint to the 3rd and 4th that I'm missing here. You guys could let me know in the comments for that. And here we get a shot of what is probably the final boss. That is not Bangar, right? Bangar looks a lot frosted. I mean, that guy's face was obscured a little bit. That's definitely not Bangar, right? Feels a lot like the Lake Doric release right there, though, and the Lake Doric boss, which, again, I'm kind of hoping, fingers crossed, is something a little bit more interesting. The Ryland fight was great in the last part, but, again, that was the very, very final fight. You'll see that they skipped over Fireheart Rise. So, really, the meat of the trailer is coming up now. It's the teaser after the end of all of this other stuff. It gives us a little bit of a glimpse into Bram's mission. And so here he is. You'll immediately notice he's with the greater spirits of the wild here. You've got Bear back there. Wolf is at his side. I've loved all this stuff with him and Wolf, by the way. Do you remember one of the main points of criticism about Bram's character and his inconsistent or aggravating writing when we were supposed to be against him was how he was so, like, individualistic, even though he was supposed to be, like, with Wolf as his totem that's very family oriented. So yeah, I really like that they're driving that forwards. Anyway, here he is in this weird fiery chamber. My prediction again is that this is the central transfer chamber, or right next to it, obviously, and maybe we'll be able to actually visit the ruins of that as well in this release, find some dwarves hanging around there, remains of some Asura civilization perhaps, but I'm guessing this will be a bit light on the ground. Maybe it really is just a circular kind of room that we go in. It looks like he's protected as he goes along. I think this is by the spirits of the wild, not some kind of Jormag influence. And I think it's important to note that Bram is probably the only guy that can be protected. You've got to ask yourself, why is this a vision in the scrying pool? Why is like Aureen helping us to see this through the scrying pool? I think it's, why isn't the commander there? And I think it's because it's too dangerous. I think Bram has basically gone slightly rogue. I think he's in a superheated chamber that would melt or kill us instantly. Wasn't there a whole thing about time he had to be protected in a golem before, and we had to do the whole ritual with the druids and stuff to survive at Draconis Monster's release? Well, I think there's something similar here. Bram's okay, the commander can't come. We'll probably see the effects of this out on the surface, maybe during the Fireheart Rise section. Maybe it's really spoilery or something. And then we have to look in the vision to see what the hell Bram did. That would also suggest Bram doesn't come back out to tell us what he's up to, for what it's worth. And I mean, let's be real, this is a guy walking up to an Elder Dragon, sleeping or not. If he's about to wake it up, I don't know if Bram's coming back out of this. Not in the way that we know him. And I actually really like that as a story beat as well, because Bram was once upon a time fighting Jormag, and Jormag fell asleep in front of him, and we didn't get to see it. And now it's like we get to see the reverse of that. We get to see Bram walk up to a dragon, and it wakes up in front of him. So yeah, I'm thinking Primordus might be active by the end of the release. And he walks over to this massive moving force. Now, we know in the story right now, Primordus is still asleep. There's this feedback loop going on, this wildfire idea that is rapidly energizing it and waking up. But there he is. He even looks slightly different to the Season 3 interpretation. Oh, and we only got a glimpse before. Do you guys remember gliding into his mouth and getting like 100 stacks of burn on you and whatever? And they really let us linger on it. This is fantastic. I cannot wait to see this dragon again. What exactly Bram is going to do is the big question. Now, the vocals for the trailer are pretty light on the ground. They don't give us much lore. They say, whole villages frozen mid-step for hundreds of years to come. We can't allow Jormag to take the Dominion of Winds. And then finally, over this shot, we have Bram saying, hundreds, thousands of us have already died because of these Elder Dragons. Something has to change. So the dialogue really is suggesting that he's in this fierce place, this desperate place where he wants to do something major. And don't forget, this is a character who already stormed off on his own to try and kill Jormag once upon a time. I do believe he hates Primordus. I do think he wants to stop Primordus and Jormag too. But he's going to do something drastic now. Maybe not with the commander's permission. I think he's going to really try and tap into Primordus's power. Whether that means full-on consenting to some kind of formal alliance, I don't know. But something along those lines seems very, very, very likely to me. I've seen some pushback in the community about that concept, because it's too obvious. Like, I really hate this idea. What do you mean it's too obvious? You mean the devs correctly and adequately set up the idea over a couple of recent patches, so now they're not allowed to pay off on what they set up because you, so to speak, guessed it? Not everything is a sudden twist. Some things just follow a logical progression. And the idea that Bram has been communing a little bit more with the Destroyers recently, I mean, it's been very plain for most people to see. I don't necessarily think that Bram will be corrupted or manipulated in any way by the dragon, but I do think this is a fun way to play with the prophecy that they set up before. And, you know, think about that opening line that they gave us. Can we bear to lose a person? If Bram does this, will he be something like what Bangar has become, except the fiery equivalent? Will we have another cage with another, like, voice, except on the other side, and it's Primordus' voice, and we'll see a three-way dragon argument? Okay, I'm getting a little bit silly here, but I do think that we will see some kind of communal, some kind of alliance, and the finale will then be set. You know, that everything will be on the table at that point for Bram plus one dragon, Ryland plus another dragon, and their ensuing conflict. I'd also like to point out, because the greater spirits of the wild are there, and, you know, this whole idea that Bram is the Norn of Prophecy and all this stuff, it's not like he's doing it completely stupidly and blindly. He's being led to do it by these spirits. And if we look back to this idea of the voice in the trailer being a greater spirit of the wild itself, you know, the spirit of dragon and all that kind of stuff, maybe the spirits are onto something. And if they're leading Bram to do this, maybe there is a righteous and correct way through it, even if Bram ends up being a bit of a pawn that ends up getting sacrificed or something. I think that could lead us to something of a bittersweet ending for the saga, unless everything goes wrong. And then End of Dragons after? Oh, it's so confusing, because I don't know where they're going to leave this story off. I really don't. Are Primordus and Jormag still going to be around by the time of the X-Pack? answering that question is really important to know just how crazy they'll go with the finale. But this is episode 3, it's setting up the finale, and I think it's pretty clear what they're doing with Bram on that one, as it has been the whole time. So there you go, guys. Thanks very much for watching. We'll see what we get in just 1 week. If you've got interesting comments and thoughts and feedback, you know, I'd gladly do even more discussion on this over the coming days. Don't forget, I do have a daily series where we do back and forth discussion about the upcoming X-Pack. Lots of this will come in there. And I did another very special, in my opinion, video today about some of the other projects ArenaNet seemed to have been working on and got cancelled back with the layoffs around 2019. The event that created the Icebrood Saga in the first place. Maybe you want to check that out. Thanks everybody for all your support as always. I can't wait to cover the patch. And I'll see you on the next one very soon.